Welcome to the store. Don't forget to subscribe, and support me.
The wind howled through the narrow streets of the city as flames rose high into the night sky. Screams echoed across the ruins, where once towering structures stood proud, now reduced to smoking rubble. The scent of ash and fear clung to the air, thick with the aftermath of an attack no one had seen coming. The dragons were back, and they were angry. For centuries, dragons had been the stuff of legends, their mighty wings slicing through the skies, their fire hot enough to melt stone. But that was before the treaty, before the peace accord sealed 100 years ago. Humans and dragons, once bitter enemies, had agreed to coexist, each side respecting the other's territory. No dragon had been seen since the signing of that truce, until now. Max watched from a distance, his hands clenched into fists, his knuckles white under the force of his grip. The city before him was one of many that had fallen in recent weeks. No one knew why the dragons had broken the peace or what had driven them to destroy the cities that lay in their path. But Max was determined to find out. Standing on the hill overlooking the smoldering remains, Max's heart pounded. His dark hair was dusted with ash, and his face, once calm and composed, was now set in a hard line of grim determination. He had spent his life as a warrior, defending his people from threats both human and otherwise. But this was something different. This was not a battle that could be won with brute force or skill with a sword. This was something deeper, something he couldn't quite understand yet. The rumors had begun weeks ago, whispers of an ancient artifact, a monument said to be hidden deep within the Forgotten Lands, capable of communicating with the dragons. No one knew if it was true, but Max had no other options. He knew that the armies of men, no matter how strong, would be no match for the fury of the dragons. If the cities were to survive, if humanity was to be spared, he would have to find another way. As the dawn broke, Max set off on his journey. His sword hung at his side, more a comfort than a tool he expected to use. The path ahead was uncertain, but the weight of responsibility pushed him forward. Every step he took was heavy with the knowledge that time was running out. The dragons would not wait for him to find the answers. The first days of his journey took him through familiar lands, forests he had roamed in his youth, rivers he had crossed in past campaigns. But soon, the terrain grew more hostile. The air turned colder, the wind sharper, as he ventured into the forgotten regions spoken of in myths and old stories. Few had traveled this far north, and those who had rarely returned. Max's journey led him through desolate plains and jagged mountains, each step taking him further from the safety of civilization and deeper into the unknown. The nights were long, the darkness pressing in around him, but he pressed on. His mind raced with questions, but none more urgent than the one that haunted him since he had first heard of the dragon's return. Why had they broken the peace? On the 10th day, after a long and arduous climb through a rocky pass, Max found what he had been searching for. Nestled in the heart of a secluded valley, surrounded by towering cliffs, stood the ancient monument. The stone monolith was far larger than Max had imagined, its surface covered in intricate carvings and runes that glowed faintly in the dim light of the setting sun. For a moment, Max stood frozen, awed by the sight before him. He had heard the stories, the legends of the ancient stone, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. There was a power here, a presence that he could feel deep in his bones. With slow, deliberate steps, Max approached the monument. His hand trembled slightly as he reached out to touch the smooth, cold surface of the stone. The moment his fingers made contact, a shock of energy coursed through him, and the world around him seemed to shift. Suddenly, Max was no longer standing in the valley. He was floating in a vast expanse of darkness, stars twinkling in the distance like tiny pinpricks of light. Before him, a massive form began to materialize, an enormous dragon, its scales shimmering like molten gold in the starlight. Its eyes, glowing like twin suns, fixed on Max with an intensity that made his breath catch in his throat. "You are not the first to seek me," the dragon's voice boomed in Max's mind, though its lips did not move. "And you will not be the last. Why have you come, human?" Max swallowed hard, steeling himself against the overwhelming presence of the creature before him. He could feel the dragon's power, its ancient wisdom, and its deep anger simmering just beneath the surface. "I come in search of answers," Max said, his voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at the edges of his mind. "The dragons have broken the peace. Cities burn, and lives are lost. I need to know why." The dragon's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then, slowly, the great beast began to speak. "You speak of peace as if it were something we desired. The treaty was a compromise, a temporary solution to a problem that had no true resolution. We gave you time to learn, time to grow, time to prove yourselves worthy of sharing this world with us. But what have you done with that time?" Max felt a surge of indignation rise within him. "We have honored the treaty," he said. "We have lived in peace for 100 years. The dragon's laughter echoed in the vastness around them, a deep, rumbling sound that sent shivers down Max's spine. "You speak of peace, but you do not understand what that means. You have taken from the land, from the skies, from the very essence of this world. You have grown bold, expanding your cities, pushing into territories that were never yours to claim. The balance has been broken, and now the reckoning has come." Max's mind raced as he processed the dragon's words. He had never considered that humanity's expansion could be seen as a violation of the treaty, but now, faced with the dragon's perspective, it made a twisted kind of sense. The dragons had not broken the peace, they believed humanity had. "There must be another way," Max said, his voice quiet but firm. "War will only bring more death, more destruction. I don't believe that's what you want." The dragon's eyes flashed, and for a moment, Max feared he had overstepped. But then the great beast lowered its head slightly, its expression thoughtful. "Perhaps," the dragon said slowly, "there is a way. But it will not be easy. The wounds you have inflicted upon this world run deep, and they will not be healed with mere words." Max felt a flicker of hope. "Tell me what must be done," he said. "I will do whatever it takes." The dragon regarded him for a long moment, its gaze piercing and unyielding. Then, finally, it spoke. "There is a place, far from here, where the lines between our world and yours blur. It is a place of great power, where the forces that govern this land converge. You must go there and prove to us that humanity is willing to restore the balance that has been lost." Max nodded, though he had no idea what this journey would entail or how he would accomplish what the dragon asked of him. But he knew he had no other choice. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders. "I will go," he said. "And I will prove to you that we are worthy of peace." The dragon's form began to fade, the stars around them flickering as the vision dissolved. "We shall see," the dragon's voice echoed in his mind as the world around him shifted back to the valley. Max stumbled backward, his hand slipping from the surface of the monument. He blinked, disoriented, as the familiar sights and sounds of the valley came rushing back to him. But the dragon's words lingered in his mind, heavy with the weight of the task ahead. He knew that his journey was far from over. Max stood alone in the valley for a long time, letting the silence settle around him. The monument loomed behind him, its ancient surface now cold and unresponsive, the faint glow of its carvings dimming under the light of the setting sun. The weight of the task ahead pressed heavily on his shoulders. The place the dragon had spoken of, the point where the lines between their worlds blurred, was a place Max had heard of only in stories, a forbidden realm spoken of by old scholars and travelers who'd gone mad searching for it. It was a place no one ever returned from, but he had no choice. His mind returned to the images of the burning cities, the screams of the people as dragons rained fire from the sky. If there was even a chance to prevent more bloodshed, he had to take it. Turning away from the monument, Max began his journey once more, this time heading further into the unknown, toward the heart of the dragon's challenge. The landscape changed as Max traveled. The fertile valleys and rolling hills of human lands gave way to harsher, more desolate environments, jagged cliffs, barren fields of rock, and churning rivers that cut deep into the earth like scars. As the days passed, the nights grew colder, the air thinner, and the sense of unease stronger. Max felt as though he were walking between worlds, caught in a space neither wholly of the human realm nor entirely of the dragons. The skies above him darkened, clouds swirling ominously, and yet there was no rain, no wind, just a heavy, unnatural stillness. The journey took its toll. His muscles ached from the relentless climb, and his mind grew weary from the isolation. Max found himself thinking more and more about the dragons' accusations, how they had claimed humanity had violated the peace. Had they? He hadn't seen it that way before, but now he couldn't help but wonder. The dragons, once seen as majestic and distant, had become a looming force of retribution, seeking to restore what they saw as a natural balance that humanity had disrupted. After what felt like an eternity of walking, Max reached a place that seemed to exist outside of time itself. The ground beneath his feet was cracked and dry, yet he could feel an energy coursing through it, like the hum of a distant storm gathering strength. Ahead, towering pillars of stone jutted out of the earth, their surfaces covered in the same ancient runes as the monument he had touched days before. The pillars formed a massive circle, and in the center, a shimmering, rippling veil of light stretched across the space, as if the air itself had become fluid. This was it. The convergence of worlds. Max approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. The air around him buzzed with power, and the light of the veil seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. As he reached out a hand toward it, the veil parted, and he stepped through. The world on the other side was unlike anything Max had ever seen. He found himself standing on an endless plain of shifting colors, where the sky was a swirling mosaic of reds, blues, and purples, and the ground beneath him felt both solid and liquid at once. The air was thick with energy, and every breath Max took filled his lungs with a strange, exhilarating sensation. He could feel the presence of the dragons all around him, though none were in sight. "You have come," a voice boomed, echoing through the vastness of the realm. Max turned to see Zarenth, the elder dragon, materializing from the air itself, its massive form towering over him. "You stand at the crossroads of our worlds, human. Now, prove to us that your kind is worthy of the peace you seek." Max took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I didn't come to fight. I came to restore what was lost." Zarentha's eyes narrowed. "Words are easy. It is your actions that will determine your fate. You stand on the precipice of two realms. Here, you will face the truth of both your world and ours. If you can restore the balance, the peace will be renewed. Fail, and your kind will fall under our judgment." Max looked around, uncertain of what to expect. The ground beneath him began to tremble, and before he could react, the plain split open, revealing a chasm filled with swirling light and shadow. From the depths of the chasm rose the forms of dragons, their scales gleaming like molten metal, their eyes blazing with ancient fire. But they were not the dragons Max had encountered in his world. These were twisted, corrupted versions of the majestic creatures, their forms warped and unnatural. Zarantha's voice thundered once more. These are the consequences of imbalance. These are the dragons your kind has created through your greed, your exploitation of the land. To restore peace, you must confront the destruction your people have wrought. Only by understanding the depth of the damage can you hope to heal it. Max's heart raced as the twisted dragons circled him, their eyes locked on him with a burning intensity. He knew this was no ordinary battle. The dragons he faced now were embodiments of the damage caused by human ambition, the desecration of nature, the disregard for the sacred balance of the world. Fighting them with brute force would only perpetuate the cycle of violence. Max drew his sword, but instead of attacking, he planted it in the ground before him, a gesture of surrender. "I see now," he said, his voice carrying across the surreal landscape. "This isn't about defeating you. It's about acknowledging the harm that's been done. Humanity has taken too much, and in doing so, we've lost sight of what matters. We've broken the balance between us and the world around us. But we can change. We can learn. That's what I'm here to prove." The dragons paused in their circling, their eyes flickering with uncertainty. Zaranth, watching from above, remained silent, as if waiting to see what would happen next. Max continued, his voice stronger now. "We don't want war. We don't want more destruction. We want to find a way to coexist, to share this world without tearing it apart. The peace we had was fragile, and we didn't treat it with the respect it deserved. But if you give us a chance, we can do better. I can do better." For a moment, the plain was silent. Then, slowly, the twisted forms of the dragons began to dissolve, their corrupted shapes fading into the swirling light of the chasm. The ground beneath Max's feet steadied, the tremors ceasing. Zaranth lowered its head, its massive eyes locking onto Max. "You have faced the truth," Zaranth said, its voice softer now. "You have seen the consequences of your kind's actions and have chosen the path of humility. It is a rare thing, for a human to admit their faults. But words alone will not heal the wounds that have been inflicted." Max nodded, understanding. "I know. But it's a start. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." Zaranth regarded him for a long moment before speaking again. "Very well. You have shown that humanity is capable of change, that you are willing to confront the consequences of your actions. We will grant you the chance to restore the balance. But know this, the road ahead will be difficult. The damage that has been done cannot be undone easily, and not all dragons will agree with the decision to renew the peace." Max felt a surge of relief, though he knew his task was far from over. "I'll do whatever it takes," he repeated. Zaranth raised its head, its wings spreading wide. "Then go, human. Return to your world and begin the work of restoration. The dragons will be watching. And we will hold you to your word." With a powerful beat of its wings, Zaranth took to the sky, disappearing into the swirling colors above. The plain around Max began to blur, the shimmering veil of light reappearing before him. He stepped through it, and in an instant, he was back in the valley, the ancient monument standing silently behind him. Max took a deep breath, the weight of his mission settling heavily on his shoulders. The dragons had given him a chance, but it was up to him, and all of humanity, to prove that they could live up to their promise. The road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but Max knew that it was a path worth walking. The future of both their worlds depended on it.